The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
When Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of King Herod, behold, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star at its rising and have come to do him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was greatly troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Assembling all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They said to him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it has been written through the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, since from you shall come a ruler, who is to shepherd my people Israel.'" Then Herod called the Magi secretly and ascertained from them the time of the star's appearance. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word, that I too may go and do him homage." After their audience with the king, they set out. And behold, the star that they had seen at its rising preceded them, until it came and stopped over the place where the child was. They were overjoyed at seeing the star, and on entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. They prostrated themselves and did him homage. Then they opened their treasures and offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed for their country by another way. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
The solemnity of the Epiphany of the Lord that we celebrate today can be hard to understand at first. It's one of those feast days that has a title that you have to stop for a few seconds and think about what it means. It's kind of like the Immaculate Conception. You have to pause for a few seconds and think, okay, does that refer to Mary or to Jesus? Is that about Jesus? And it's the same with the Epiphany. You have to sort of pause and think about it for a minute, or we could easily misunderstand it. The word Epiphany means manifestation. Our Lord manifested himself and the glory of his divinity several times through the Gospels. He showed his divinity to his closest apostles on Mount Tabor at his transfiguration. He performed his first public miracle by turning water into wine at the wedding feast of Cana. God the Father announced Jesus as his beloved Son at his baptism in the Jordan River. These were all manifestations. These were all epiphanies. But today's celebration focuses on the Son of God being made known to the three wise men from the east. It can be confusing sometimes to understand what each of our feast days mean, but there is indeed a clear message to all of us today. First and foremost, we should know that our gospel reading today does not merely describe a pious legend or some astronomical alignment, as some who try to rationalize the account would say. The story of the wise men from the east, following a star to Bethlehem and Jesus, is a narrative of fact. It was a miracle, and it was real. The reality of the account, though fixed at a certain time in history, provides a wealth of inspiration and meaning for all mankind of all times. Actually, it is these three kings, or scientists of the stars as they came to be known, who themselves represent all mankind because they were Gentiles, they were non-Jews. It was to these three non-Jews that Jesus, born of a faithful Jewish family, made himself known. And their journey is typical of all those throughout history who have searched for Jesus to adore him. This is a source of great hope for us. To those of us who may not feel particularly close to Jesus, today is a new day. We can find hope in the fact that these three kings also made the journey, and they have shown us how to make it. Their journey was long, no doubt, and how do we suppose they explained it to their family and friends? I'm sure they were met with doubt and dismissal, maybe even ridicule. They had studied the stars. They knew how to follow the brightest star of them all, but it was by a special grace from God that they interpreted it as a sign of the presence of the long-awaited Messiah, whom they had heard about from their Hebrew neighbors. Inspired by this grace, they sought him out in order to do him homage and to adore him. It is just as the prophet Isaiah foretold. Raise your eyes and look about. They all gather and come to you. Your sons come from afar. Often we too, by a special grace from God, yearn to be close to Jesus Christ and to adore him, but it can sometimes seem like we are only coming from afar. Let us learn from the Magi and be brave. Let us put the same certainty in our knowledge of heavenly things and in our faith as they did. Let us make the long journey with confidence that we will indeed find Jesus, and let us cast aside our love for approval or material things that get in the way. Upon finding him, Isaiah said, "Then you shall be radiant at what you see. Your heart shall throb and overflow." Indeed, St. Matthew tells us the Magi were overjoyed at seeing the star and on entering the house when they saw the child with Mary, his mother. This joy is ours too. Many of you are doing well in your spiritual lives and remain close to Jesus. For you, this could be a day on which you take another step to be even closer to him, or to invite those who aren't on the journey to take the first step. With bravery and with the guidance of the church and her ministers, we make our way to Jesus. And when we find him, we are filled with joy. And we discover that all of the confusion that we may have started with is replaced with simplicity and clarity. St. Matthew tells us that the Magi saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they prostrated themselves and did him homage. They simply humbled themselves, lying flat before him in adoration. All of the confusion of their long journey, following the star despite difficulties, seeking and following advice, enduring Herod's conniving demands, gave way to simple adoration of our God-made man. As we grow closer to Jesus, one helpful reflection could be to examine ourselves to see how we adore him or if we adore him. Today's solemnity challenges us to see ourselves in the place of the Magi. Jesus present in the Blessed Sacrament is the same Jesus the wise men found in Mary's arms. When the Blessed Sacrament is reserved in the tabernacle or displayed in the monstrance every Monday following the morning Mass for adoration, do we even realize he is here, like the Magi realized? How can we grow in that awareness? Many Catholics maintain their awareness by making the sign of the cross whenever they drive by a Catholic church, acknowledging his presence in the tabernacle there. Or they genuflect slowly and deliberately with their eyes on the tabernacle when they enter or exit their pew. Or by spending an hour or just 15 minutes to pray to him during adoration on Mondays. Actions such as these help us to remain prostrate before the Lord in our hearts, right beside the Magi. How sad it would be to live life unaware of his presence, or to pursue him only from afar. Finally, let us not forget Mary. The three kings had their star to lead them to Jesus. We have Mary, who was called by the early church fathers Stella Maris, Stella Orientis, Star of the Sea, Star of the East.